The Eurozone in crisis. Union at any price? Our guest, German Economics Minister Philipp Rösler.
Mr. Rösler, the Eurozone crisis is dragging on and on and on. Have you run out of patience with Greece?
Not in the least. Europe can be pleased at what we've achieved in the past 2.5 years. We've created a stable union, along with a clear set of rules. We put the European Stability Mechanism into place to help ailing nations within the framework of European unity. We also have a fiscal compact that will strengthen our competitiveness. That can bring regional stability, a boon for Europe, the Eurozone, and our currency, the euro.
In Richtung einer Stabilitätsunion, das hilft Europa, das hilft der Eurozone und natürlich unserer Währung, dem Euro.
Let's describe Greece as an ailing patient who's not responding to medication. Every economic report out of Athens is full of bad news. Do you really think we can bring Greece back?
Let's wait for the full report from the Troika. That said, we have our own information to go by, and we are prone to skepticism. It seems nothing's really progressing. Not institutional reforms, privatization, or reform of the social welfare system. Looking at the big picture, as far as the idea of a stability union is concerned, it can only work if we restore confidence in our common currency. With that in mind, those countries who are instituting reforms can count on our full support, and those nations who fail to do so must understand you can't have something for nothing.
As economics minister, you led a delegation to Greece. And I must point out that was a rare visit to a country mired in crisis. Do you believe that Greece can recover given the tough requirements of the euro? Or would another currency serve Greece better in the short term?
The goal is not just to save money and consolidate national budgets. Fundamental reforms are needed to make things competitive again. Once those structures are in place, economic vitality must be rekindled. That's what we wanted to promote through mid-sized German businesses in our delegation. The goal was to bring economic life back to Greece. Unfortunately, the requirements are not yet fully in place. For instance, reforms haven't been implemented that would make it easier to start a small business. There are also hindrances to German investment in Greece. The biggest challenge Germany undertook, along with Greece, was the founding of an investment bank along the lines of our German KfW group.
It probably goes without saying that Europe will be supporting Greece for a long time to come. There's growing concern that the International Monetary Fund is slowly distancing itself. Is that avenue of financial aid coming to an end?
As I said, reforms don't come without paying a price, and you can't have something for nothing. I think all of Europe understands this quite clearly. It's the only way the system can operate.
You've said yourself there's no longer an aura of dread about a Greek exit from the Eurozone. You took some heavy criticism for that. In the meantime, Eurogroup boss and Luxembourg Prime Minister Jean-Claude Juncker has said a Greek withdrawal would be economically manageable. What do you think?
We've put a clear set of rules into place. Our goal is to ensure stability within the Eurozone as a whole. That means implementing lean national budgets and reforms that increase competitiveness. But those laws and guidelines must be adhered to. We must see to that. Only that will restore global confidence in the Eurozone. As far as your question about the possibility of a Greek exit and Mr. Juncker's comments, it's worth noting that he's adopted our position. But it's important to underscore the measures we've put into place. The European Financial Stability Facility, and now the ESM. These are all mechanisms put into place to unilaterally stabilize our common currency. And a lot of experts agree with me on this.
So only Greece can decide whether to exit unless the euro falls apart.
Again, we're waiting on the Troika report. If reforms are lacking, there won't be any additional financial aid. That would lead to Greek insolvency. That would spark more debate in Greece. Everyone is fully aware of the possible consequences when the Troika investigation returns to Athens. So that's a very good motivation to continue the path of reform.
ECB President Mario Draghi, Chancellor Merkel, and the French President have all vowed to do whatever it takes to protect the euro, to save it and to prop it up if needs be. How do you interpret whatever it takes?
Draghi has already made that clear, everything that lies within the powers of the ECB president. I find it important that he also made clear the absolute priority of instituting reforms among the individual member nations. Buying up bonds is no substitute for structural reform. Another important aspect is his insistence that the ECB will not grant a banking license to the European Stability Mechanism. And even if such a conduit were in place, we couldn't afford to allow lending to take place. That's also a positive signal for the Stability Union.
So your line in the sand is that the ECB cannot simply payroll Greece.
First of all, it has to do with the ECB's independence. My party, the Free Democrats, places enormous importance on keeping the ECB independent, just like Germany's central bank. Its main priority is to maintain a strong and stable currency. That must be its main focus. I believe Mr. Draghi and I see eye to eye on this matter.
You can't overlook the fact that economic rationale foresees Greece leaving the euro. It's the political fallout that people seem worried about. Your FDP colleague, Foreign Minister Guido Westerwelle, has said repeatedly that Europe has its price, but also its value. How much value do you place on Europe?
I'm absolutely convinced and committed. We are fully ready for a more integrated union. But taking a look at the system, we will concentrate on what we're truly able to achieve. We believe that actions go hand in hand with responsibility and oversight. But that has consequences. Germany is prepared for solidarity. Our future is in Europe. There's no alternative. That's a quote from former Foreign Minister Hans-Dietrich Genscher. But to assure the future, we must all see to it that we assiduously follow the guidelines that we've worked so hard to implement. I'll say it again, the Eurozone and the Euro must not fail because one or two nations are unwilling to institute reforms. Those who take on reforms will receive abundant aid. There's no question about that. That's what the travel is all about, and the many support mechanisms. But each nation is also responsible for its own fate.
Still, the Eurozone crisis has led to the impression that European resolve is weakening, that the EU is splitting apart, tearing at the seams. Could it be that Europe will split up due in large part to bickering about the best way to manage the crisis?
No, absolutely not. We're pressing for further European integration. There's no turning back. But it's also clear that a currency can't be held together through friendship alone. That's why we put a solid mechanism into place. I predict that our currency will become the strongest and most stable in the world. But we must fully implement the mechanism, which includes manageable budgets and competitiveness through economic reforms. Other regions of the world aren't paying too much attention to their budgets and aren't doing much to strengthen their own currencies. And that could give us an advantage. That's the German government's goal, and mine as economics minister.
And still we see sudden animosity from the very countries who once embraced the ideal of European unity. You see Chancellor Merkel portrayed with a Hitler moustache. Italian newspapers refer to Germany as the Fourth Reich. German papers also characterize Greeks as lazy and cheats. The return of nationalistic antagonism. Is this the bitter price of the Eurozone crisis?
We're seeing highly emotional reactions, but I don't think we should attach too much importance to that. We have a problem with economics and fiscal policy. As Europeans, we're seeking a common solution, not just within the Eurozone, but all of Europe. I can understand the emotional reactions in the various countries, but you must remember that citizens are affected by the reforms. We went through the same thing with the Agenda 2010 economic reforms put into place by a previous government. There were enormous protests. But look at the result. Imagine now not just reforming one aspect of the social welfare system, but all of it. You have to take it as a whole, with budget discipline and privatization on top of that. So it's clear that there's unrest, but it's vitally important that the governments keep a cool head, face the problems, and find solutions. That puts them on the right path. And once on it, they must do everything possible to stay on that path.
Is the EU doing enough to convince its citizens in Greece and Spain that this path is vital and unavoidable? Or is it carelessly leaving that up to national governments that often get voted out of power?
We must constantly promote a strong Europe. I recently met with the Portuguese economics minister in his country, and I was fascinated by the fact that an entire country, government, opposition parties, society as a whole, came together with the singular goal of implementing reform. It shows that a fundamental clarification of liberal policies works well. If you think about what the reform process means, you realize how difficult it is for governments to convince the public. Citizens have to endure some hard times. Still, we must keep our shoulders to the wheel. The reforms must be implemented to ensure that together we maintain a robust currency.
Mr. Rösler, thank you very much.